The Arizona Desert, 1970. A Caterpillar test engineer walks a slow circle around a machine that does not officially exist. He checks the hydraulic lines for weep marks, runs a gloved thumb along a cylinder rod, and looks back toward the trailer, where the cameras are locked away. Secrecy is the whole point. Peoria has ordered that nobody outside the program sees this prototype dig. What he does not know, crouched there in the heat with dust on his gauge glass, is that the machine he is sworn to protect is already 17 years late. Not late against Caterpillar's schedule. Late against a schedule set in 1953 by a builder's son in a Swabian village most of Peoria could not find on a map. So how does the most dominant equipment maker on Earth fall 2 decades behind a company that did not exist when the war ended? And why, 40 years later, would Caterpillar sign a check for $8.6 billion to buy what all that time and all that money never managed to build? Hold both questions. They have different answers. In the years after the war, Caterpillar did not just lead Earth moving. Caterpillar was Earth moving. Track-type tractors out of Peoria cut the roads of the American interstate system. Cat scrapers moved the dirt. Cat graders finished it. The dealer network stocked parts within a day's drive of almost any job in North America, and the yellow paint became shorthand for the entire industry. Digging, though, belonged to someone else. Excavation ran on cable. Bucyrus Erie and Marion built the giants. Coering, Linkbelt, and Warner and Swassey built the site machines. A cable excavator was a rolling winch house, hundreds of parts under tension, gravity doing half the work, and Caterpillar was content to leave that market alone. The company owned the ground around the hole. It did not dig the hole. If you have run an excavator for a living and learned that the badge on the counterweight matters less than the pump behind it, or if you just enjoy these types of videos, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now back to the story. But dominance organized around one way of moving dirt is only as strong as that method's grip on physics. In 1953, in a rented machine working a site in Upper Swabia, that grip began to slip. Kirchdorf and der Iller, southern Germany. Hans Liebherr, a builder who had invented the mobile tower crane 4 years earlier, hires a cable excavator for his own construction work. He stands at the edge of the cut and watches it dig. He watches the drums spool, the boom swing, the bucket drop by gravity and claw back on a wire rope. Then he does the arithmetic that the entire industry had stopped doing. Most of this machine's weight exists to move the machine, not the dirt. He set the rental papers on the fender and kept watching long after the operator had stopped noticing him. The line attributed to the logic of that moment, reconstructed rather than recorded, is simple. We can build something 4 times lighter that digs harder. 8 months later, his company presented the L300, the first hydraulic excavator in Europe. 7.5 tons, 25 horsepower, roughly a quarter of the weight of the cable machine it answered. The cab, the boom, and the combined shovel and backhoe bucket appeared on a construction machine for the first time, and the slewing ring was developed and built in-house. Series production began in 1954, and around 110 machines were delivered in the first 3 years. But one small builder in Swabia does not move Peoria. What moved the market was what Peoria chose to do with the next 2 decades. It chose to wait. Here is the mechanism that explains the wait. Because from inside the building, it was not negligence. It was discipline. Caterpillar's product lines in the 1950s were printing money. Track-type tractors, scrapers, loaders, all feeding a dealer, parts operation with margins the competition could not touch. Early hydraulic excavators, meanwhile, earned an ugly reputation. Low-pressure systems, blown hoses, leaking seals, machines that promised the future and delivered a puddle. The customers existed, but they belonged to a different market. One Caterpillar had never served. So the executive who declined to chase hydraulics was not asleep. He was protecting proven margins from an unproven system and protecting scraper and loader sales from a machine that might cannibalize both. On a 5-year horizon, that logic is airtight. The problem is that markets are not run on 5-year horizons. They are run on physics, and the physics favored oil over wire rope. Caterpillar began secret layout studies in 1968. Prototypes reached the Arizona Proving Grounds in 1970. The 225, Caterpillar's first hydraulic excavator, launched in 1972 behind Coaring, behind Linkbelt, behind Warner and Swayze, and behind the machines already arriving from Japan under the names Hitachi, Kato, and Komatsu. The spreadsheet was right. The decade was wrong. That first loop is closed. The second one, the $8.6 billion check, is still open. If forensic teardowns of decisions like this are your kind of viewing, subscribing costs you nothing and tells the algorithm to keep them coming. The 225 was a competent machine. But arriving 18 years late meant Caterpillar entered as a student in a classroom it was used to teaching. The foundational patents, the pump expertise, and the field data belonged to others. So Cat spent the 70s learning in public what Liebherr had been refining in private since the L300, and Liebherr had not stood still. In 1960, the A650 became its first fully hydraulic excavator, drive included. In 1968, the 900 series laid the foundation every later model built on. So by 1983, a Liebherr excavator could carry a Liebherr diesel, Liebherr hydraulic pumps, Liebherr swing drives, and Liebherr axles, all developed under one roof. In 1989 came Litronic, electronics coordinating the entire hydraulic system, years before the industry made that standard. But the excavator was also becoming the defining machine of modern construction, the one tool that digs, lifts, rips, hammers, and demolishes. So every year of the head start compounded across a growing market instead of a shrinking one. And at the very top of the class, the gap stopped being a gap and became a ceiling. When surface mining demanded a hydraulic machine big enough to challenge electric rope shovels, the machine that defined that ultra class arrived in 1997. It was called the RH400. It was developed by Orenstein and Koppel. It was designed in Dortmund, Germany. Caterpillar had nothing at that size and no program to build one. The root cause is not that Caterpillar lacked money or talent. It is a difference in what each company believed an excavator was. Peoria treated the excavator as a product line extension, one more machine to hang on an existing dealer system. Kirchdorf treated hydraulics as the company's core physics. From the first slewing ring on the L300 to the pumps, drives, and engines that followed, Hans Liebherr's rule was to develop the key technology in his own house, because the component is the machine. That is why the ending is a purchase order instead of a blueprint. In 2011, Caterpillar closed its acquisition of Bucyrus for $8.6 billion, which 1 year earlier had bought the mining equipment line of Terex, which had grown from Orenstein and Koppel of Dortmund. The RH400 was repainted yellow and renamed the 6090 FS. The largest hydraulic excavator in the world, now wore Caterpillar colors. It was still a German machine. Caterpillar did not close the 17-year gap. It bought the other side of it. Be precise about what was lost, because it was not the sales chart. Caterpillar sells more excavators worldwide than Liebherr, and a Cat 360 next dig site over is a serious machine backed by the best dealer network in the industry. That is not the contest that slipped away. The contest was the frontier. The founding plant at Kirchdorf has now delivered more than 75,000 excavators, and the Liebherr range runs from 11 tons to over 700 tons. Engineered on components built in-house, on a lead opened by one man watching a rented cable machine dig in 1953. Caterpillar copied the machine. It could not copy the company. One question stays open. When Caterpillar wrote that check for $8.6 billion, it bought far more than one German shovel, and within 5 years it was shutting down entire product lines it had just paid for. What it found inside Bucyrus, and what it killed, is the next video. Subscribe so you don't miss it. We'll see you then.